Jesus is still Jesus. Even when things were in doubt, even when things were fearful, Jesus was still Jesus. And Jesus still did what Jesus does. And I think that's something really cool that we see. We would need to see this. Jesus takes care of us. I think that's very evident. Jesus takes care of us. If you go and you look in Matthew 14, it starts out, of course, with John the Baptist. But then it goes to where Jesus feeds the 5,000. Now when Jesus heard this, of course that was the news of John the Baptist. He said that he withdrew himself from there to a boat to a desolate place by himself. But he had such a following at the time that the crowds just followed him. Followed him out from the towns and where he was preaching. They followed him into the wilderness. And it's not far from towns, of course. But they had been following him for quite some time, and people were beginning to get hungry. And, hungry people in a mass mob like that is probably not a good thing, right? But they were all following him. They wanted to know what Jesus said. They were interested in what Jesus had to say. They were interested in what Jesus was doing, the miracles that were going on. And so, of course, they followed him. And the people start to get hungry, of course. And the disciples come to Jesus with this problem and say, we need to send him back. And Jesus, he says something that I really like. And he says, they said to him, we only have 5 loaves here and 2 fish. And he said, bring them here to me. What I see there is they had very limited resources to work with. The apostles, the people there, they had 5 loaves of fish. 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. It's very limited resources. And what Jesus can do with very limited resources is beyond our, it's unimaginable. He feeds 5,000 with just 5 loaves of fish. I'm really stuck on that, aren't I? 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Limited resources that Jesus uses and has left over. I think that is just absolutely fantastic. That image of what Jesus can take when we bring him our very limited resources, and he can just use that. And he takes care of us with that. He takes care of our hunger. And then it says immediately, that's another time signature, immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him onto the other side of the sea while he dismissed the crowds. And so, after he feeds the 5,000, he sends the disciples off, and this is where Jesus walks on the water. And so, while the disciples are on the lake, or on the sea, there's a great storm that arises, right? And it says that the winds were against them. I'm sure that it was such a struggle to just be out in the middle of the sea, the middle of the lake, and the winds come on you, and there's a storm. And I'm sure that can be extremely scary. Extremely scary. There's another time of doubt. There's another time of fear. And who is walking towards them but Jesus Christ on the water? And at first they're scared of it, right? Because if you see somebody walk on the water, you get scared because that's not supposed to happen. But at first they're scared and they thought it was a ghost. And he says something. Jesus says, take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. Peter answered and said to him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. And he said, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, beginning to sink, and he cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, O you of little faith, why do you doubt? And when they got onto the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, Truly you are the Son of God. So he took care of Peter, even when Peter failed. Peter, of course, is not a perfect person, but he did get to walk on the water. He had faith enough to get out of the boat, but then he looked around and said, wow, these are big waves. So he saw the storm around him and got scared. And I can relate to that. You see things going on around you and you get scared. You lose a job, you lose a relationship. You're not really sure what's going to happen over the next day. You're worried about your own health. You're worried about the health of others. You get scared when you see everything around you. But Peter knew what to do. He said, Lord, save me. And immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and pulled him back up. I think that's awesome. Because he didn't let Peter just struggle for a little while. He didn't say, well, we're going to let Peter learn his lesson that he should have been focused more on me. He didn't say that and then save him. He didn't watch him flop and be amused for a little bit and then save him. No, it says that he immediately reached out his hand when Peter called upon the Lord to save him. And then he gets into the boat, the wind ceased, and they worship God. And so even in our failures, Jesus takes care of us. And then you come down and in verse 34, Jesus heals the sick. It says that all these people, everybody just wanted to touch Jesus so that they would be healed, and they were. They had enough faith that they said, if I could even just touch him, I could be healed, and they were. So Jesus takes care of us in our hunger. Jesus takes care of us in our failures. And Jesus takes care of us in our sickness. Physically, spiritually, he takes care of us. Something that I think is really cool about this whole sequence of events is that it starts off in a place that I can relate to. It starts off in a place of fear and doubt. And Jesus still is taking care of people. And in the middle there, whenever they're in the storm and things aren't going right for the apostles, Jesus is still there and he's still taking care of them. I can relate to being in a storm and Jesus taking care of me too. And then your bodily health isn't where you want it to be. Jesus is still there and he still takes care of us. But what about if we let Jesus into our boat and then the winds don't cease? What about whenever Jesus doesn't provide the healing? When he doesn't provide the food? What do we do? I think it's very telling in that time where our hope is and what our faith is in. Because I have faith in my God, but I still doubt. I have faith that he's going to provide for me. I have faith that he's going to help me, but a lot of times I don't like the way that he does it. God answers prayers in a number of ways, but a lot of times we want him to answer the prayer in that one way. Emma and I were even talking about that the other night, and we were laughing at ourselves a little bit, talking about this and talking about how, God answers prayers sometimes, but we want him to answer the prayer in a specific way, just to our liking. And a lot of times that's not what's best for us. That's not what we could benefit from the most. And God knows that, and so he does that. He's always taking care of us. Always. We have to have Jesus in our boat, though. If we want the winds to cease, if we want to have any hope of getting out of this storm, we have to have Jesus in our boat. It's the most powerful thing. It is the absolute most powerful thing to have his power, his grace, his love all on our side. We have to have him in the boat. And even when the winds don't cease immediately, we still worship him. And I think that's a beautiful thing, a beautiful sign of submission, a beautiful show of faith, that we worship him and we still trust in him, even when we're in a storm, even when there's a lot of doubt, a lot of uncertainty. We still trust him. And Matthew 6 is talking about the being anxious part. And I'm not a huge fan of the word there, but when I'm doubtful, I think that might be a better use of the word. It talks about when people are doubtful, when people are fearful, and it says, if I take care of the grass of the field, I take care of the birds of the air, will I not also take care of you? Jesus says that, and it's so powerful because, yes, he does. He takes care of all those things that we take for granted outside. He takes care of the grass. He takes care of the birds. Will he not also take care of us? But we have to have him in our boat. We have to let him be there. We have to let him be there with us. We still have to be there worshiping him. We still have to be there having faith in him. We got to have him in our boat. Because if we don't, there's no hope for us. But when he is in our boat and when he is in our lives, we have the most hope that anybody could ever have, even during hunger, even during failure, even during sickness. We still have more hope than anybody else in this whole world because we have Jesus Christ, and we know what Jesus Christ did. He came to this earth, and he died on the cross, and he was resurrected, and that's the gospel. And he wants us to spread that, and he wants us to follow him, do what he set out for us to do. Spread his name, glorify his name through all the earth. See, I have a hope because Jesus Christ, he came and he died on the cross, and he was resurrected. He defeated death so that he could have a relationship with me. And that's my hope. He sent his Spirit to live inside of us and to be our helpers through this life so that we could one day have a relationship with him in heaven like they did back in the garden. That's my hope. That's our hope as Christians, that relationship that we have with Jesus Christ, that the Son of God came and defeated death for us. And that gives me hope. You know, Hebrews 13:8, it says Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And Jesus is pretty awesome, and so I'm pretty excited about that. Jesus gives me hope yesterday, he gives me hope today, and he gives me a reason to have hope tomorrow and the next day and forever after that. Because he says that he's going to take care of me. He's shown it over and over and over through his word. He's shown it over and over through our lives. We can know, without a shadow of a doubt, that Jesus is going to take care of us, no matter what's going on, no matter what storm is raging around us. All we have to do is we call out and we said, Lord, save us. And he immediately reaches out his hand. Thank you all for being with us. Thank you all for studying with us tonight. Don't forget to join on to Travis's Zoom party that he's going to be sending out the link to soon. We are just so thrilled that y'all are following our media still. John and Jared and the rest of the production team are doing a outstanding job with this stuff, and we're just so thankful and so blessed to have them and all the rest of the production team on our side. Thank you all so much for being here. Obviously, if you have any needs, please call us up here at the office. Email us. If we can pray with you, if we can help you in any way. You know, we can't have an invitation in which you come down front, but man, our doors are open. Our text messages box are open. Our emails are open. Just call us, and we'll try to help at whatever need it might be. And we'll pray with you and try to be with you when we can. Thank you all so much for being here with us. Thank you all so much for studying with us. Y'all have a blessed day. Hey, good morning. Well, I guess you're listening to this a little bit later. It's probably about 6 o'clock when you're listening to this, but so good evening. It is so good to be here with y'all today. I've got me and my buddy Dale here, who was just hanging out up there for a little while. But me and my buddy Dale, we're ready to roll. See, what we wanted to talk to y'all about this morning is nothing other than Jesus walking on the water. And how cool is that? You know, I've never walked on the water. I've tried once, but I went through. And I don't know anybody who's ever walked on the water. But in this story, in this biblical account, two people walk on the water. And that is super, super cool. So, our story today, it comes from the book of Matthew, and that's chapter 14. And it's in verses 22, and it ends in verse 33. And so, let's talk about our story. So, Jesus had just fed 5,000 people with just a few loaves of bread and just a couple fish. Now that was pretty cool. So he was taking care of everybody in their physical need, whenever they got hungry. Jesus was taking care of everybody. But then he sent his disciples out onto the sea. And when he did that, he said he needed to rest, and he would come on. But his disciples, they all went out into the sea, and there was this big, great storm. And during this storm, they got really scared, and they didn't know if they were going to make it. It says that the waves were against them. It just means like that it was bad for them. You can imagine being out in the middle of the sea, and it's rocking you every which way, and you know it's awful. It's just, I can't imagine it. And so they were getting rocked around, and then they see this man walking towards them on the water. And that's just nuts, right? That's just nuts, because we've never experienced that. You're not supposed to be able to walk on the water, but Jesus can, because Jesus can do everything. And so the people thought, well, it's a ghost. And they got really scared, and I would be pretty scared too if I saw somebody walking on the water towards me during a storm. I'd be pretty scared if I saw anybody walking on the water. But yep, so they were super, super scared. And they said, well, it must be a ghost. And Jesus, he says, take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool right there. We'll come back to that. Let's underline that in our Bibles. And then we can come back to that. Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. And then Peter says, Lord, if it's you, then command me to get out of the boat and walk on the water. Now what a leap of faith. In the middle of a storm, Peter has faith enough to say, Lord, if it really is you, let me come and walk on the water with you. And that's awesome, isn't it, guys? That is just awesome. And Jesus just says, come. He says, come. So Peter got out of the boat and he walked on the water. Now, not only do we have one person, Jesus, who is the Son of God, walking on the water, which is a little bit less surprising, but we have a normal person like you and me walking on the water because Jesus made them. Jesus got them to be able to walk on the water. He's just that powerful. And so Jesus is walking on the water, and now Peter's walking on the water. So what happens after this is Peter starts walking towards Jesus, and then something happens. A big shark doesn't come up and eat him. A big fish doesn't come up and swallow him like we talked about last week with Jonah. No. He starts getting afraid. As long as he's looking at Jesus, see, everything's all right. But then, he stepped away from Jesus. He started looking at all the waves around him, and it said, but when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. You know, he got scared because he was walking on the water and he saw the waves around him. And he got scared, and rightfully so. Because, I mean, if you see all the waves, it's pretty scary when you're walking on the water like that, I can imagine. But But yeah, he started sinking. And what did he do immediately when he got scared and he started to sink? He said, "Lord, save me! Lord, save me!" And it says that Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him. He immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him. Now that's just pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Now, whenever we're sinking, whenever we're scared, we can always cry out and just say, "Lord, save me." And Jesus is right there with us. You know, I don't know what you get scared about. You know, I know somebody who gets scared if their room is really dark and their closet door is open. I know I get kind of scared in the dark in the middle of the night too. I don't know what you get scared about. You're probably a little bit tougher than I am though. And so you might get scared of fewer things than I do, but everybody gets scared. You know, it's alright to be scared. Because, I mean, everybody gets scared. Just like Peter got scared. Peter was a great apostle, and he got scared. But he knew exactly what to do whenever he got scared. He said, "Lord, save me." And so, we can know that no matter what, whenever it's time for us to be scared and we're scared, we can always cry out and just say, "Lord, save me." And it says that Jesus will immediately reach out his hand. And that's just pretty cool. Now, you might not see a hand coming down from your ceiling because that's kind of weird too. But what you can know for a fact is that Jesus is right there beside you. Even if you're as scared as you may be, no matter what you're going through, Jesus is always right there with you. And that's just super, super cool. And so what I want y'all to do is when you're with your parents, we're going to send out a coloring sheet. You can color that. You can find it on our Facebook page. But I want you to tell your parents, or tell your brothers and sisters, or tell whoever's with you. Just say, tell them what you get scared about. But you can say, "But God is always right there with me." Like I can say, I get scared when it's really dark in the church building and I'm by myself. But I can always know that God is right there with me. So y'all do that too. And maybe you can comment and tell us what you were scared about and tell us about how God is just right there with you no matter what. Guys, Dale and I have had so much fun hanging out with you today. So much fun. And I guess we'll see y'all again on Sunday. And we're really excited about it. Thank y'all for tuning in. Show me your coloring sheet. Tell me what you're scared about, and I might tell y'all some things too. Alright. Well, we love y'all. See you later.